first rule in grip sport is you tell everyone about grip sport.
You know, crushing, pinch grip, thick bar, wrists.
If the best guy in the world can't lift 100.
All right, everybody. So recently the Armlifting USA World Championships wrapped up in Las Vegas for the Olympia. And we have some fairly regular people for the grip show. Jaland Worley, Eric Roussin with me. And yeah, we're just going to kind of jump straight in on a recap here to discuss the World Championships. So is there anything you guys would kind of like to start with? Obviously, we're going to get into the lifts and get into the athletes and, you know, break down the weight classes. Is there anything you guys would like to kind of begin with in regards to the experience, the competition, or anything that went down when you were there?
Do you want to start, Jaland, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can start with some comments. First of all, thanks for having me back on, Zach. It's always nice to catch up with you and chat about grip stuff. It was a great weekend. It was a lot of fun. It was a big turnout. I enjoyed myself. It was nice seeing everybody as usual. Really competitive weekend. I'm excited to go through it and talk about it. There were some good storylines, some really cool lifts that happened. So, yeah, ready to get busy. So.
This was the third Armlifting USA Worlds. First one, and for the past 3 years, it's been held in part as part of the Olympia Expo. So 22 was in Vegas. Last year was in Orlando. This year back to Vegas. One thing that was a little different this time was in past years, we were all on the same expo floor. This year, the expo was on 2 floors at the convention center. You had all the action was on the first floor in terms of the exhibitor booths and all of the traffic and the bodybuilding, whereas the second floor had a lot of the sporting competitions. So we had a lot of space, but I thought it was not, I would have preferred a bit more foot traffic because we weren't seen by as many people as we were in past Olympias, and certainly far less than the Arnolds. So that was one mild disappointment. The competition itself was great, but that was one thing I noticed that was a little too bad with the realities of the spaces that we were working with.
Yeah, so you kind of just felt like there was a little bit less visibility, or maybe like other people maybe like passing by weren't getting to kind of check the lifts in the sport out as much.
Right. It was mostly other athletes, or I guess athletes' friends, I guess.
Yeah, I got you. So like I said, I wasn't there. I didn't attend this one, but I kind of got feedback, from, friends and people there that were lifting and doing stuff like that. So I was, getting some updates and kind of play-by-play stuff as things were happening. Tried to stay in tune with as much info as I could. But did you guys want to kind of jump into really? I mean, if I just go in order, I have the score sheets in front of me. We could kind of jump in with the masters lifters, probably.
Sure.
That's just if I go in order, with the way these things are, like I said, they have it also kind of broken up into, the masters have been split into different weight classes, and looks like also there's Eric, can you correct me if I'm wrong? Has there ever been a difference between like masters 50 plus and 60 plus? Or is that something that's just a new addition because of the numbers?
I think this may be the first year that they added that. I know they added 60 plus, I think, to the Super Series. This may be the first time for the Worlds as well. I'm not 100%, but I think, yeah, as the sport is growing and attendance grows, I think these categories are just more and more categories getting added. Same thing with the teens. I don't think there was enough for a teen division last year, but this time there were three guys and one teenage girl, so they had separate divisions for them as well.
Okay, well, like I said, if I just run straight through this list, we can start off with the men's masters, which would be 50 and up, and this would be the weight class where 110 kg, so they'd either have to weigh 242 or under. We're talking pounds, and you guys were there, so you could probably give a little more insight, maybe, if you saw this stuff and how the lifts went down. But Adam Cohen took first, and I feel like he's been very active this past year, and he's been pulling some very impressive lifts. So I really like the consistency that I've been seeing from him, and I kind of like seeing I don't know, him sort of kind of lead these masters classes for right now. At least last few competitions he's done.
And it was interesting because if you look at after the first event, he was in third place. After the Saxon, it was three guys who have very strong pinches. Adam, Tony, Ricardo had good pinch performances. So that kept it interesting throughout the event.
Yeah.
And then the Anvil itself, this I think was definitely the first big event where the Rogue Anvil was featured, and I was really looking forward to seeing what types of numbers we would see, because at least online it looked like a lot of people were good at this event, or good at vertical lifts in general. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, he pulled away by event 2. He was back in the lead, and then he sealed the deal on the Raptor. But that Raptor, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but we can talk about it right now. But for those who don't know, the third event was 3 weight stacks with each having a 2-inch Raptor. If you can do one on the, sorry, one moment. Sorry, I just had to, my kids were coming down. I had to tell them not to come. So the first stack had a given weight. I forget what the weights were. They were adjusted depending on the weight class. The second stack was a little heavier. The third stack was the heaviest. If you can do and the way it worked is you try to get 1 rep on the first stack. If you're successful, try to get 1 rep on the second stack, and then go to the third stack and get as many reps as you can. If you can't get any reps on the third stack or any given stack, you can go back to the previous one to try to rep it out to get more points. I don't know why or where the third handle was from. We all got lucky because the third handle didn't feel like the other ones. It was a Raptor handle that I've never felt like it before. This is one that actually felt not slippery, which was unexpected.
Yeah.
And that was sort of to everyone. That's why I think I'd say across the board, people got more reps than they expected on that third stack. But what was Jaland? You were about to say something?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say I doubled what I had done at home in the gym with my slippery Raptor handle. So yeah, that thing was very friendly.
Yeah, same situation with me, and I think it could have kept going if I had more time. Mm-hmm. But what happened though is I think that for most people that third stack was actually easier than the second stack, and that probably hurt some people, because if you were close to getting the second stack but failed, you had to go back to the first, whereas you probably would have got a rep on the third. So it was a bit of a funny situation. So that was a bit of a surprise. But yeah. But anyway, the Masters, Adam clearly won. He sort of had the mess. But it was an interesting contest because both Tony and Ricardo, although they lost points on the Rogue, with the Saxon and the Raptor, they were all sort of in the same ballpark at least. And the fourth competitor was he was a smaller man, Mike. I didn't know him before, but Mike he was by far the smallest by body weight. For his weight, I thought he did great, but he wasn't quite as strong as the 3 others.
Well, and then that's kind of hard too. When you don't necessarily have a giant pool of people in the Masters, and you do kind of make a weight divide, the disparity in weights is going to be a little bit bigger. You're going to run into, maybe that smaller guy, like, okay, you're lifting against guys that are 240 and you weigh 180 something. You know what I mean? There's a big gap there. So, had there been, maybe 5 masters in each weight division or something, it could turn out differently. But yeah, sometimes when you only just split a class in 2 categories by weight, somebody's going to end up on the heavier side of that class and someone's going to end up being way lighter. Then if we go up to the 110 plus, so this would, that's how they kind of split the 50 and over category was split at 242 pounds. So it was, if you're over the age of 50 and you were under 242, that's what we just covered. Now, if they were over 242, that is the next category. And here, Ron Paulus, who super strong dude, beast. But Yeah, he got the overall win here, and
For
really,
those of you who don't know who Ron is, he's one huge individual. Jalen, did you get a
mhm.
chance to shake his hand?
I did. It
It,
enveloped mine, and my hands are not small.
it's an experience. His hand is massive, like it's like a bear. Like it's very very impressive. So he had the perfect score. He's just, I guess, just so much bigger than his competitors that so he had the strongest lift across, and this was a case where Dean unfortunately didn't get a rep on the lowest
Ah,
stack on the medley,
yeah.
which obviously really affects his score. So
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And some of this stuff, if it seems like I'm slightly out of tune with it, it's because some of these results I'm looking at, it's the first time I've seen them. So as we're covering it, kind of, in the process of this, I'm seeing some of these numbers for the first time too. So yeah,
right,
I now see that he zeroed on the Raptor there, but still cool. I still think it's a cool aspect that he's there, competing, training, and jumping in and stuff
yeah,
like that. And we'll get to Andy's performance later, but Andy did very well, obviously. So it's cool, seeing stuff like that. I don't know that there's a lot of you know, family combos that are lifting, you know, at some of these events. There's maybe been a few, but it's not exactly common. So like I said, I think it's kind of cool to see that kind of stuff. Um,
yeah.
then yeah, if we go Master 60 plus, there was no weight division here. It was just the three guys that were 60 years and older. Um, and if I had to run down this order, I would say, first place was Dan Gutchis, second place Chuck McFarland, and third place Rich Winter. And um, yeah, checking out the numbers, a little bit of a gap between second and third, but for first and second, pretty tight battle.
Oh yeah, they
So
flip flopped right through, and they almost tied on the Raptor medley.
Yep.
Chuck is actually in his 70s. Um, so strong
oh
guys.
wow,
Yeah,
Yeah, they were fun to watch. Very inspiring too.
yeah, and they were all about this roughly the same size. So that was a very interesting class to watch.
yeah, that always makes it better. Like you said, with the Masters, when sometimes you can have those big weight gaps, it's cool that they were roughly the same size and all lifted pretty well. Um,
Rich Wenner. Apparently he was a champion powerlifter. That's his background. So I think this is his first time trying grip, or one of the first times. So it's fun to see people come from other sports, and that's the good thing about grip is it can be always grip is sort of the easiest ones. Everyone can end up at grip. It's that seems to be what happens.
yeah, yeah. Once they get too banged up doing their other stuff, you can kind of low injury, low risk,
Yeah,
but still be very highly competitive and still move big weights. Um, so you said the first time there's been a teen division, Eric? Was that accurate
I think so. I think
for
so.
this?
Yeah.
I think so. Okay. I know we've had teen lifters before, but I didn't know if they had a specific teen division. But yeah, if one of you guys wants to kind of break down that, if you're checking out some of the stuff, I don't want to like just over ramble on you guys here. Like I said, I wasn't there.
Yeah,
I can read off the spreadsheet, but it might mean more if yeah.
so Maxim was, from my team, so he's been competing a couple of years now. Um, he had won the Super Series, so he was very confident going in here. But Kyler Sorensen kept him on his toes. I mean, although Maxim won every event, it was always close. Um, and Nolan is just he's in grade 7. He's much smaller, so it was fun to see him compete. He was probably the crowd favorite, but
Mhm.
it's hard as a 12-year-old to compete with the 16 or 17-year-olds. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's super tough.
And Kyler trains with Sarah Chavelo in
okay,
Wyoming, so he's got a good mentor and coach there. This is his first really big
At the Glen Rock Barbell
Yep.
Club.
So this was his first big competition. He's competed locally around here in some of our regional ones. So uh, I think he looked kind of nervous, being on such a big stage. But I think we'll see more out of him in the future. He's impressive.
then from there, like I said, if we just kind of follow the sheet in order, we had two lifters for men's 70 kg. Um, and I don't know, if this is the day they lifted on or how they did it, or if this is just how they compiled the results after. I'm not super familiar with the order of the schedule there. Um,
Yeah, it
but
was always
okay,
each sheet has to do with the block of time. So yeah, they were the only open class that competed in that during that
okay,
first grouping. It's unfortunate there were only two competitors in the 70 kg, but that was really the Steve Gaspar show. I mean, he was impressive. You know,
yeah,
at his
I
body
do
weight.
like I do kind of like here where I see like the obviously the first two events is where the biggest difference was. Um, with a 30-pound gap on the Saxon bar and about a 35-pound-ish gap on the Anvil, but only 4 reps difference on the thick bar event.
Yeah,
So, like we mentioned, if you're hitting 21 reps, that that might just be a who was faster on the down call,
yeah,
not bouncing. You know what I mean? If they repped it out the full minute,
yeah.
that event could have went either way. So that would be something I'm seeing. 21 reps to 17 reps there. That essentially, if you repped it out for the full minute, that's that's pretty much even almost there, really.
Right.
So if it wasn't for those first two events, might have been a little bit of a closer battle. But I also believe that uh, I don't know Luis Ramos very well. I believe he's newer to the sport, as Steve Gaspar is as well. But Steve does have a rock climbing background and has been training a little bit, competing and probably training a little bit more frequently, I would say at this point. But it's good to kind of maybe see where that 70 kg class goes, or if maybe there's other events where we get a deeper pool of people to pull from. But I would look for that to maybe stay pretty competitive as time goes on, because sometimes you get like we mentioned with some of the masters, this might be the first time somebody tried a Saxon bar or that diameter. So, or not
Yeah.
diameter, but width. You get what I'm saying? But yeah, so Steve Gaspar and Luis Ramos, 1 and 2 there at the 70s.
Yep.
And
And Luis has only been training for about 7 or 8 months now.
okay.
Work with me a little bit. Very strong guy. He's super motivated. He signed up for this one with like 3 weeks in advance. Like he just kind of on a whim decided to do it. He doesn't even have a Saxon bar. He uses the napalm handles to try to train for it. So
Mhm.
once he can get a little more equipment and some more experience, and the comp experience is huge. So I think we'll see big stuff out of him. Down the road. So pretty impressive result for your first big.
Quick question, Jaland, for that. Because just check my memory for me here. Did he compete at the Greenville Grab
Good.
in South
That was
Carolina?
initially yeah, that was his first competition where he like that's what he
Yep.
initially started training for. Wanted to do that one. So yep.
Okay. Yeah. So but he performed very well there. And when I did a recap with Zach and the guys for that competition, we noted how strong he was for his body weight and some of the lifts he did that day. So yeah, I would definitely look for him to continue to improve and probably get a lot more competitive at that 70 kg class. So yeah, I
That's
just
it.
wanted to make sure I was right on that name and recognized it from before.
Yep. Yep,
Um,
that's him. Yeah,
uh,
he seems to have like
okay.
a very naturally strong wrist. So, as you can see in that Raptor event where he got all those reps. So yeah, we'll see what happens down the road.
Yeah. Um, and then do you guys want to kind of break down as we get into these women's classes? We're going to get into, well, one women's teen lifter, and then women's 60 and 70 kg.
So the women's categories overall were very. There was a lot of athletes, and the competition level was very high. Like this was a tough. There weren't many top women from North America who were not there. I mean, they were almost all there. You never get everyone, but this was a very competitive field. Um, Layla was the only teen, so she won her division, but she lifted alongside the lighter weight women. To me, this was very interesting because Grace has won the last, I don't know, probably the last two worlds and the last two Arnolds at 60 kg. Corinne Lalonde, who trains with me, um, she normally a little above 60, like 63 is normally more her weight, but this was her goal to attend the worlds and get into the 60 kg. And man, she had a really great day. She's one of an older competitor. She's actually in her late 50s, but she's been led a very athletic life, competed in many different sports over the years. She still does like Spartan races and endurance type stuff. She got into grip 2 years ago. And yeah, she had a really great day. She had a perfect score of 300. So I was really proud of her. It was interesting. Grace and her were clearly the top two. But Corinne had just a bit more in the tank. And then there was an interesting race for third and fourth, Sarah Ott and Anna Wilkins. If you look at the score, very, very close. Yep. They each won one of the first two events and they tied on the medley. But just the way the scoring worked out, Sarah came out on top.
Yeah, and it's always good when you have close races like that, even if it's not for first or second, the third and fourth. I mean, some of those other battles, I don't know, fighting for any place, I think, at some of these competitions is fun. Now, obviously, everybody would love to have first place, but it's still, I don't know. I get excited if there's, okay, maybe one weight class has a clear winner. But if there's other battles, secondary going on for that second, third, or fourth spot, it's almost just as exciting for me personally to watch. I just like seeing even competition, when it's back and forth or you don't know the outcome. It gets pretty boring when we all kind of know the outcome. So anytime there's an outcome that's like they're going back and forth, I'm usually tuning in and kind of liking that if I'm in person watching. And then onto the 70 kg. Have you guys ever heard of? Okay, keep going. Sorry, Eric. Yeah.
So this is Tammy class. So there's no Tammy class. No big surprise that Tammy won, but there was no slouches in this class. Those three ladies were strong. If you look at the numbers, Saxon, Anvil, and Raptor, they did very, very well. Once again, I don't have a printout of the weight lifted on the Raptor, but all three of them got at least 25, so it wasn't heavy enough for them, let's say.
They dominated that. I mean, 30 reps, 28 and 25. I mean, that just might be the pull height, how much they let it rest on the ground, not even really a strength issue. You know what I mean?
Right.
The difference in the reps, who knows? They all probably could have done 40 reps, or something before they burned out. So there was no real failure there. It's just a matter of timing. So for that particular one, they needed a heavier weight to challenge them. In my opinion,
maybe not a heavier weight, but a regular handle.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah. Well, that too. but yeah. So shout out to those three ladies for like I said, I wasn't there, but judging by the stats, like you said, no slouches and nothing was really free. Everything was pretty much earned there in that class. Now it's been a minute. I know Ashley Muncie returned back to competing. I couldn't remember necessarily her first competition back, but I know within the last year she got back into the swing of things and has always been a very strong competitor and pretty close race here with her and Helen Nguyen. Now, Eric, do you or Jaland, whoever wants to kind of take this on, because this is our first class where we start getting into having more than 2 or 3 people per class. We start to kind of the classes start to get a little deeper here.
Session 2 that we just went over along with this one was incredibly entertaining to watch. I mean, it was just so close across the board. The battle that Ashley and Helen had was fun to watch, and Alicia Martin and the rest in the class, they were all right there too. So Helen really impressed me, and I'm not familiar with too many of the women here. Ashley obviously impressive, she won, but what I saw out of Helen was just phenomenal. Like I actually told her afterwards, like all of the women should be scared of you, not even just your weight class. Like all the women should be scared of what you're going to do as she gets more experience. She surely blew me away with what she did.
And the fact Helen just recently, she had cancer very recently. She only just found out very recently that it's in remission. So to maintain this level of strength is unbelievable. It's very impressive. Um, Ashley, what really surprised me
Yeah,
was what
I was
Ashley,
going to say her Saxon bar.
yeah, her Saxon bar 160. Yeah, that's good.
I mean, that's the second highest or tied for second highest for all of the women across the board, correct?
Or yeah, well, she tied with Sarah. Yeah,
Sarah's tied Sarah Chaplow, and the only one that lifted more
Amy.
would
Yeah,
have been Amy Waddles.
yeah,
So that's the first thing that's jumping out to me with that Saxon lift for Helen. So
yeah. And she was the
yeah,
lightest competitor in that class too.
yeah. So to Jalen's point there, yeah, everybody, regardless of weight class, should be kind of keeping an eye on her and kind of what she's going to be doing as she gets on a roll, moving forward. So
Ashley, what impressed me the most were her technique on the anvil was flawless. She almost got 175. She got 172.5, but that's huge.
big lift.
These women are lifting basically their weight. I think she lifted more than her body weight, which is huge.
Yep.
So yeah, if we just were to not break down, but basically just run through it, and like I said, hopefully I'm not messing up any names here. These aren't too challenging, but yeah. So for the women's 80 kg, we have Ashley Muncie in first place, Helen Nguyen at second place, and Alicia Martin third place. And that first and second battle was a little bit closer, separated by a 5-point spread, and then it dropped down to about an 18-point spread for the second and third. But still a pretty competitive top three, and definitely the top two right there. I mean, that could have one or two missed lifts that can go either way.
Yeah.
So
a
yeah,
note
good,
about
good. Keep on.
Yeah, a note about Alicia Martin. She's actually stopping competing in strongman, and she's going to go exclusively to grip. So I think we'll see bigger numbers out of her on top of. I mean, these are great numbers anyway to place third, right? So I think as she focuses solely on grip, she'll become a force herself.
Then 90 kg. Now I'm not 100% sure, but usually the women's, due to the participation, I feel like it would almost always be kind of like 60, maybe 70, but I feel like there hasn't really often been a 90 kg for women. It's usually been 80 to 100, correct?
Yeah, I guess the numbers are growing to the point where Ricardo felt it was
Have more
warranted.
weight
So
classes.
yeah,
Yeah. And like I said, the class has 5 people in it. So I mean, yeah, it's if the classes are filling out like that, it's good to kind of get people dialed in closer to their actual weights. So you don't have those bigger ranges between body weight, you know. Um, so yeah, with this class, let me see really quick. I'm just looking at a couple stats, but yeah, and really, this is I mean, Haley Gal took this. She took this weight class, and pretty big lifts pulled here as well. I'm noticing 150 on the Saxon bar, which kind of falls in line with Ashley Muncie did 155, Helen did the 160, Alicia Martin did 155. That 150, I mean, you're still right there with that class, and then Sarah pulled 160. You're 5 to 10 pounds away from you know the top of everybody. So that's a good lift for Haley there, just to start things off. And she took 100 points on that event, and then carried on and won 100 every event following that for a clean sweep. So she had the full 300 points in her class. Um, as far as the second and third place battle with Heather McDowell and Rachel Peterson, extremely close race.
that was close, eh?
Yes.
Extremely close.
So,
Came
what was that like? Did you guys get a chance to watch that as that was going back and forth? Or did you even realize how close it was in the moment? Yeah, just speak on that if you guys want.
I don't think I noticed how close it was in the moment, but like I said, it was just the weights were growing and there were just so many women left as the weights kept getting higher. And
Yeah.
impressive. Ricardo did a good job in calling that out, making sure everybody knew it's like, hey, we're getting up to world class weights, and there's double digits of women left lifting it. So it's very impressive.
But yeah, so like I said, if we want to kind of just keep kind of cruising along, that would, wrap up the 90 kg class with Haley Gow taking the first place finish, Heather McDowell second, Rachel Peterson third. Then we get into, and I don't know, I mean, maybe they felt the need to do this, but one thing I was wondering is if, I guess if you have weight classes, just stick to the weight classes. But I think it would have been interesting if instead of leaving Amy Waddles by herself, if they would have just merged Amy in with the other 100 kg women, or just made that kind of one class. That could have maybe, I don't know, maybe made a difference. I don't know. But then again, like I said, we have weight classes for a reason too. So, but yeah. Let's cover the 100 kg. Yep.
I guess just to speak on that, like, even though it's separated out here on the list, like the vibe of the competition was like, for a while, I had forgotten that Amy was actually separate. And
everyone was lifting together. So you sort of got to see the top people rise to the top.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that makes sense. So I guess realistically on paper, it would only really matter for placing, but as far as like in the moment, sort of head to head on the same equipment, you're still kind of getting that same effect. So yeah, that's a good point.
So Sarah, I knew she was losing weight. I didn't know she was down under 100. So this is the first time we've seen Sarah not in the supers. So that was a surprise just to see her.
Well, she's been, I feel like she's really been leaning down a lot, but not sacrificing any strength whatsoever, only getting stronger, but also cutting the body weight. Yeah. So yeah, she's been on a mission since she started grip, she's been on a mission, but I'm saying like the last year or so, she's really started to kind of, I don't know. I don't say set herself apart from the pack. She's always been sort of a part of the pack and kind of the one that a lot chase. But she's improving upon everything she's done before at a pretty good rate still for having, been doing this so long. But yeah, let's dive in on 100 kg. But yeah, if you guys want to kind of break this down and maybe cover some of these lifts, and like I said, we can kind of roll through pretty quick. We don't have to spend too much time.
I will say, so we all went out for supper on the Thursday night before this competition, and I asked Sarah what, if she had any numbers in mind, or she just said she expects to do something special on the Anvil. And well, we got to see it because for a woman to lift 200 pounds on that thing, I couldn't believe it. Like that's a lift, 200 pounds.
Yeah.
It's among the top lifts. Even there aren't that many men who lifted more than that in the contest, and most of the men were bigger men. So it's very impressive.
Yeah. One thing I would add to that is, I mean, Sarah's always been impressive across all grip disciplines. She's always been very well-rounded, but I won't say it's a trend, but something that I've sort of noticed with her lifting, and then I hope other people are at least paying attention to, is her vertical bars are getting pretty nasty because she pulled 221 at the last Olympia on the grandfather clock. North American, she pulled 180 some pounds on Little Bighorn, or whatever that was. You know what I mean? In that range. Now you see the 200-pound Anvil, and maybe I'm not saying this is why, but that the Anvil for Rogue has the same dimensions as Little Bighorn, but it has a longer taper, so you have a little more customization for your hand. So maybe this handle fits her hand a little better. But I can point out those 3 vertical lifts that Sarah's done in these more recent competitions at the biggest, highest levels, and yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, she's going to pinch good. She's going to have good thick bar, but like people need to start taking notice of her vertical lifts because she's outlifting I won't say most of like the heavier weight men, but if you took all the male lifters, she's outlifting a great portion of them in these vertical lifts, and the technique is flawless as well. I won't go down that rabbit hole just yet or anything, but her technique is great on it as well. So it's not like she had a questionable 200 pounds where it wasn't controlled at the top or it was braced against the thigh. It was clean. It was textbook lift. And when you're at a world championship and you are lifting something that is that significant, you don't want to have any of those gray areas or question marks. And she basically left everybody uh, with nothing to say. You know what I mean? Nothing questionable about the lift at all. And that's how you want it when you're lifting records and doing stuff like that. You just want it to be outright, no dispute. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, congrats to her for that one.
So some insight about her training leading up to this. As cool as it was to see her pull that 200, her training was a trip the last couple of weeks leading to this, because we kept changing her programming where it was like, she's like, it's too easy. It's too easy. The animal's too easy. Like 3 weeks out, she was doing like 3 sets of triples with 177, which is like the record that she had set. And so we're like, oh my God, what is going to happen here? So on her last training session before we deloaded to go to this competition, she just kind of went off and was like, I just want to see what I can lift. And after her workout, she just started pulling, and she would like 182, 185, 190. She got to 196 after her workout, at the end of her workout. And so she never even actually lifted 200 in training. The first time she lifted at 200 was there at the contest. So that was intense. Only she and I knew that, but it was so amazing to see her do that. Like, anything that I did with my performance that weekend, it was like I got more fulfillment out of seeing her do that. And I know the rest of the crowd there did too. It was a very special moment. So it was really cool.
Yeah, and that's good. Eric, we kind of spoke in our episode with Adam recently that we did. We kind of touched on that. Whereas you kind of mentioned some of your training lifts weren't necessarily as big as your competition lifts. This is kind of a case like that where, like, it's always nice when you can see somebody that's like, oh, I never pulled that in training. It's like they're pulling the big numbers when it matters, because I think we do see a lot of some of our best grip lifters, some of the most experienced guys, girls. Sometimes they leave their best lifts and they leave their PRs in the gym and they don't carry them to the stage with them. So it's nice, like Jaland said, when somebody can kind of have the training built up to it and then exceed what they did in training when it matters the most. So
yeah.
Congrats again to Sarah on that. That's it's always good when stuff comes together like that. And then Eric, Kathy Facey, Canadian lifter, correct? Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Team Ottawa.
Second place.
Absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately, none of the other women were able to get that second pin on the Raptor Medley. But Kathy was able to get a certain number of reps to at least win that. She was second in all the events, so she was over the moon. She was very happy to take second to Sarah.
Yeah, real good performance. So yeah, and if we kind of sum up that class there, like I said, I think the biggest lift to speak on would be that Anvil lift, and we definitely kind of gave it its due there. But yeah, to wrap up that class, Sarah Chapello with a repeat victory of Worlds, because I mean, like I said last year, what was it? Or was it Orlando, or were we in Tampa? I'm forgetting right now. Orlando, okay. Yeah, because I mean, she took that, so it's just another kind of repeat deal for her there in first place. Kathy Facey second, Rachel McWilliams third. All right, so we had some technical difficulties going on with mostly the Wi-Fi on my end right now. So we kind of had just wrapped up the day one. We were kind of talking about Amy Waddles pulling the biggest Saxon lift of the day, and like we mentioned, Amy was in a class by herself, but like I said, still lifted with everybody else and still managed to pull the biggest Saxon lift, which I'm assuming if that was the biggest lift, and with the 2-inch only being contested the last couple years, I'd say that's probably technically an Armlifting USA world record.
Yep,
for her.
72 pounds, new record.
So congrats to Amy for that. But yeah, so with some of the technical difficulties we had going on and all that, I had to move and change some stuff up. So I'm going to kind of let Jaland and Eric continue on here as we kind of branch into day two. And I'll kind of let you guys take it from there if you'd like for now.
Yeah, sure. Just before we move to day two, so there was the Women's Masters also on day one.
Bad. Yeah.
Corinne, her goal of attending this event was to win or to do well in the 60 kg class. She wasn't even sure if she'd do the Masters. But once the 60 was out of the way and she had won, she felt good. So she entered the 50 plus. And yeah, this was a very tight class. If you look at the scores, 1, 2, 3, very close. But Corinne managed to secure the victory by winning every event. Like I said, very competitive. Joanna Hull from New Hampshire, a very close second place, and Karen Zinn just a little behind, but a very, very tight group.
Yep.
And then day 2, open. This is the men's open classes starting at 80 kg. So all of these classes were fairly well. Had the minimum they had was 5, and they had up to, I guess the biggest class had about 8. So decent groupings. The 80 kg. Did you have anything you wanted to say about the 80 kg, Jaland?
Unfortunately, I didn't get to see too much of the first couple sessions here. Just my day didn't get started the way I thought it would. So I was real happy though to see that Will was able to pull this off and get the win here. He's been working really hard, so it was nice to see him, get that first place placement there. But he definitely earned it because this was tight. Looking at the score sheet here,
yeah, very tight. And do you know anything about the second competitor, Tofu Ebuenga? Do you know anything about him?
I don't. I've never even seen his name before.
So he looked in shape. I suspect he may have a climbing background, but very impressive physically. And he had a 210 Anvil. I mean, that's a big lift for a man who's, I don't know if this was his first contest, but he's new to grip. And Will got 38 reps. Wow. And 33 for Tofu. And Max, the teenage Max from Ottawa, he had not planned on entering this class. He wanted to do the teen and hopefully win. But because, I convinced him, you might as well enter the 80 just in case you're going to be there anyway. So he did, and he managed to get a 3rd place. So he was really happy with that. So 200 Saxon, 170 Anvil, 29 reps on the 3rd pin. So, I mean, he was very happy. But, Will, Tofu, Max, Will and Tofu very close for top, difference of less than 3 points or about 3 points. Mm-hmm. And Max not too far behind. So competitive class. The 90 was a bit surprising because it was won by someone that I have not yet met. He's only been doing grip 5 months. Nate Phillips. If you look at the results, the Saxon, four guys got 210, and Mark Brotherson from Colorado actually got 220. Some strong pinch lifters. Will, Ian, Vince Broderick from Vermont. This was a very competitive group. If you look at the span of the points, so no one won every event, and it went from 290 even all the way down to 6th place, 262. That's a very, very probably the most competitive class of the day.
Do you know where Nate Phillips is from?
I think he's from Ohio.
Ohio,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you met him, Zach?
I haven't, man. I think I saw that he was from Ohio somewhere. I just recently moved back to Ohio,
right.
A couple weeks ago. So I'm not sure what part of Ohio he's in, but he might be somewhere between. I'm all the way on the west side of Ohio. Dingy and Mike Saffel are over on the farthest east side of Ohio. He might be somewhere in between us, I believe.
Okay. But for him to get a 220 Anvil, I mean, that's, and he weighs under 90 or under under 200 pounds. That's impressive. Very good lift. And look at how many guys were in the mix on that, on the last event. 13, 13, 17, 15, 15. A lot of equally strong guys on that event.
Yeah, that's
very. It's fun when you see a class that's this tight because it was really anyone's game. So
yeah,
fun to see.
It's awesome.
Ian Wheat from Alberta got 3rd place, despite he's recovering from a broken foot. So he had a not a cast, but he had like one of those boot things on. This happened more than 2 months ago, so he's almost, it's not like it just happened, but still, it's not. I'm sure it's not ideal to be lifting in those conditions.
Yeah.
If we go to the second grouping of the day, the second flight of the day was my class, the 100 and the 110.
Congratulations.
So this my numbers sort of I got 260 last year in the Saxon. I was hoping to hit 260, and I wasn't expecting to get more. I got 260 off the ground, but I couldn't lock it out, so I got 250. Can't say I was disappointed, but it was still good enough for the win in that lift. Matt Marino got 230. I know he got 230 last year as well, so he was at least happy that he matched his number. And Dustin also got their 230. So some strong pinchers in that group,
for sure.
Well, and like whoever is it Dylan Hebert? I don't know how to say it, but it says he says he lifted 240. So technically he took second in that event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big number. The Rogue, I expected, well, just because I knew Matt was pretty good at the vertical lifts, I expected he'd get a good number, and he did. I was very happy with 213. I'd never done 213 before. I never really attended that weight, but so I was happy. I have to say, the Anvil felt very good. It was very seasoned, more seasoned than mine. And there's two types of Rogue Anvils. There's like a black one, and there's like is it bare steel? I'm not sure. But this was not the black one. I have the black one at home. This was not the black one, and I think it felt better. Well, it definitely felt better. What did you think, Jaland, about the way it was seasoned?
I liked it when we started, but we had some newer lifters who, when they didn't get the weight the first time, they like pulled on it like 10 times, and it moved the chalk out. Now we'll get to the numbers, and it didn't matter for Alexi or Carl or any of those guys, but for me, the texture got weird, so I didn't quite hit the number I wanted. But when we were warming up with it in the first couple of days, it felt great.
Right.
It was well seasoned.
Right. And on the reps, similar to you, Jaland, I thought going into this event that I might get maybe a dozen reps, because the weight on this was 85 kg, which is a pretty heavy weight for the Raptor, for a 2-inch Raptor. Yep. But just the way the handle felt, I mean, I got 23. I'm pretty sure I could have got 40 or 50 if I had the time. It was you kept going, so that was a pleasant surprise. But everyone was in the same boat. So I won that class. Matt, he got 275. He was second. And then, third, fourth, fifth, very close, 261 and 250. So really could have gotten almost anyway. Unfortunately, Dylan didn't get the second pin. And like I said, I think almost, if you look through the scores, you won't see how many people got stopped on the third pin. It's either because if you made it past 2, you probably got the 3. There's very few cases. I think there may be only 1 or 2 situations where that was not the case. But in the 242, Andy, unsurprisingly, Andy's a very consistent. He's strong across the board. He 260 Saxon. Is it 260? Sorry, I'm trying to see.
Yep, it's 260.
Yeah. 203 Anvil, 25 reps on the third pin. So he was the victor there. But Max Piccola out of Rhode Island, wow, he got 223 on the Anvil.
These guys put on a show. Very entertaining to watch, for sure.
For Max to have the lowest, which is not even a low Saxon, he still got 210. But then he went from that to getting the top lift on the Anvil. I think that propelled him to, well, I'm not sure. It would have definitely put him at least in second going to the third event. Or maybe not. Anyway. And then at least a few guys got multiple reps on the third pin. So it's always interesting when you see someone who's really good at one particular event and see how that affects the scoring. It can really swing things. And Zach McCarley. So that's Zach McCarley. I first time I met him, but he is apparently 2-time world's strongest man under 105. Which if I understood that correctly, that sounds really impressive.
Little.
So yeah, I guess he wanted to try grip, and he got a 260 Saxon. No, this is not a guy who had not trained. He had trained some of these implements, so it's not like he just came off the street. But to get 260 on your first big contest, that's impressive. Very big one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So he was strong enough to get second place. So no surprise to me that Andy won this, but it was interesting to see how the rest of the class shook out. And then we got the funnest classes, at least from a spectator's standpoint. It's always fun to watch the biggest guys go. I suspect I'm not alone in that respect. It's always fun to see the biggest, strongest guys to see what they can do head to head. Do you want to talk about your class, Jaland?
Sure. There's some question about what weight class Alexi was going to be in. He's right there on the line of the 125 and 125 plus. He weighed 123, so he was in ours. So he put me in a 62-pound hole in the first event on the Saxon bar, which is just insane. 312 pounds on the Saxon bars. Just incredible. He's a machine.
I believe that was the world record, at least the Armlifting USA world record.
Yes, sure. Yes. He tried 317 and got it to like above his knees, if I recall correctly.
Right.
So, incredible. But that was not, for me, the most impressive thing he did. It was the Rogue Anvil where he pulled 260 pounds. And I had mentioned previously that for me, the texture of the chalk got weird because it got smoothed out and sweaty.
Right.
Doesn't matter to him. He just does what he wants to do. And he decided he was going to pull 260 and just incredible feat of strength. And then
he's very deliberate about how he sets the anvil in his hand. He's really knows what he's doing. You can tell.
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah. He's it's a marvel to watch him operate. So I always learn a lot watching him. So it's fun to compete with these guys that competed in our group here. He got 21 reps on the Raptor and perfect score of 300. Super impressive. I came in, this is the lightest I've weighed in maybe decades. I came in at 116. I want to be very careful with my weight because King Kong is coming up.
Right.
So I didn't want to get myself in a situation where I had to try to do some sort of crazy cut 2 weeks out. So I got pretty low on weight over the last couple months, but my strength, I didn't feel any weaker or anything with the cut. So I was happy with my performance. 250 on the Saxon. I was hoping for 260, but this was more about either winning or second, depending on where Alexi was going to go. I wasn't so much concerned with PRs or big numbers. So I was happy with my performance today. I wanted 218 on the Anvil, but I just couldn't get it done. And but the Raptor. So if we look at the other guys on the list here, Mike and Grigory, I won't say I checked out after the first two events, but when Grigory got up to do his Raptor medley, I woke up because he hit 14 reps, just pumping them out. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to work to seal this up. And Mike also got 14, so I thought, but I've only lifted 7 in the gym, but my handle is not as accommodating and friendly as one was. So I figured, okay, Mike got big numbers, Grigory got big numbers. So I thought, okay, the handle's got to have something, at least a little bit to do with it. And I was relieved when I got up there and I got the first 4 or 5 reps. I was like, okay, it's the handle that's really making a difference here. So, but I still had to work hard. I mean, I got 15 reps and it took me a couple of minutes to catch my breath afterward. But super solid performances. Like Mike pushed on the Saxon bar. Grigory did great on the Anvil. David Reynolds on his Anvil, 208. If he could have got it to come together for the Raptor, he could have jumped up probably onto the podium because Mike gave him a little bit of a window, but unfortunately, David needs to work a little bit more on the Raptor and get his wrist a little bit stronger and his fingers, the crush a little bit stronger. But he's 22. Bright future for him and if he keeps at it. So,
yeah.
Anything you want to add on this class, Eric?
No, but I'm seeing what you just said because he got stuck at the first. He couldn't get the second handle. Like I said, some of these guys, I remember they were getting air on the second one. They just couldn't lock it out because Then you're right. The number of points that affects.
And
Yeah,
I was screaming at him from like 5 feet away. I kept telling him, David, go back to the first pin, rep the first
get more
pin.
reps. Yeah,
He was so determined to try to get that second one. Just an experience thing, right? So if he had gone back to that first pin and repped out as many as he could, he might have it. I don't think he could have got to the podium, but
right.
he probably could have got fourth.
You're right. Right.
So, live and learn. That's what happens at competition. But his vertical lift is very strong. So I'm encouraged by David improves every time. And so does Quay Leong.
Yeah.
Very, very good performances. They get better every time. So it's nice to see everyone in this class leveling up every time we get together. And Gary Lloyd was a newer lifter. He did great, though. I hadn't met him before, but he did great. And, that rounds out our class there. So, Zach, anything you want to add?
No, man. It looks pretty clear cut. Like I said, I mean, when Alexi's in a class, he's been doing this so long at such a high level. I mean, he doesn't really leave you any room to gain ground on him, Yep. So yeah, but then you and Mike going at it. I mean, obviously the Anvil, Saxon was relatively close, but the Anvil, I think is what kind of hurt Mike on that one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, other than that, like I said, I mean, it looks like a pretty solid class because I'm recognizing, almost every single name, and it's good to see the repeat competitors that are coming back, and then you can kind of gauge their past numbers, where they're going, and stuff like you mentioned. Yeah, nothing really to add there, but just nice to see that the podium turned out pretty well, and we can kind of get into the super heavies.
So one thing I'll add here, it would have been really interesting if Alexi had been in the weight class above, because he would have been right there with Carl. So if we look at Carl's Anvil number here, Carl decided to rest and save some energy for the Raptor. I will never know, but I would be curious to see how that would have played out if Alexi had been in the 125 plus, because they were neck and neck on the Saxon bar. And if we look at the Raptor, now our weight was 90 kg on the Raptor. I think the 125 plus was 95, or maybe it was 100 actually.
Yeah.
So we'll never know, but I thought that was an interesting way that played out. So, Eric, do you want to talk about the big boys here?
Yeah. So, strong guys as usual. We sort of probably expected the top three are maybe no surprise. Maybe the order, we sort of know those were the three favorites going in. A couple of things that surprised me. Jason, I know he got 280, which is impressive for anyone else, but I know he's capable of doing more. Mm-hmm. So I'm a little surprised that maybe the bar just didn't feel right to him, because I know he's done over 300. So
yeah, I spoke to Jason. I don't think he had missed 300 ever in training.
Okay.
And I've seen him pull up to 315 on it. So I anticipated personally Jason possibly pulling the biggest Saxon of the day, because in theory, and that's why we hold the competition, because you don't know what happens the day of.
Yeah.
But, Jason, in my mind, I mean, him, Carl, and Alexi all should have probably been in those low 300s somewhere, if if things had went that way. And for whatever reason, maybe the bar wasn't right. Everybody's a little different, but Jason ended up with 280. But that's for him, that's an underperformance,
right?
Just because we know the background context a little bit, but yeah.
The other thing that surprised me, or impressed me, I should say, was Derek's Anvil lift. Derek got 238, which to me is a huge number on that. And he finished in fourth, but he almost made the podium. So Derek is a guy who I think is slow and consistently. He's getting better and better. So he's right on knocking on the door of those top guys. So I thought he had a really, really good day. I agree. I Alexi, Carl, I think just the way they looked, I think Alexi would have come out on top. I know it's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
But he was on. Alexi was on that day. So Carl, is that what happened? Carl just lifted 238 and he just decided to stop?
Yes, because he had done so well on the Saxon bar compared to everyone else. He decided to save his crush for the Raptor. But he went off and got a ton of reps, right?
Right.
So,
Hey, Jalen, real quick too.
yeah.
Just because Carl pulled 310, did he try to go higher and fail, or did he pause there as
I think
well?
he did. I think he did try 317 as well.
Yeah, they
Okay.
both did.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just double checking. I wasn't sure if he kind of cut it short there too, because like I said, looking at a spreadsheet, and I wasn't there. Yeah, I wasn't sure if maybe he had left an attempt or two on the table. But okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
If I remember right, they both tried 312 and Alexi got it. And then
Oh, is that what happened? Okay.
Alexi tried 317. If I might be misremembering, but it was something along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll second what you said about Derek Hudson, especially on the Anvil.
Yeah.
He had worked really hard on that, so I was happy to see him do so well on it. It was really cool to see that.
So Luke had the top Anvil lift among that grouping, but I sort of expected just from what I saw on Instagram, because he was like I think in training he was in like in the 260 range, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I assume he was still satisfied with 253. It's a monster lift. And you look at those top four guys on with the reps, and do you remember Carl on doing the reps? Like he was getting frustrated that he was sort of behind the pace. And at one point when there was about 10 seconds left, he knocked out like 5 quick ones that I think counted. But you can see that he was just frustrated because he knew that it was well below his abilities, but he wasn't able to show it. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, he was getting frustrated, and I don't know if it was the down calls or what it was, but yeah, you could see it. He wasn't happy with how that ended up, but still got the win. But yeah, I think he could have. He probably wanted 20 or more, I think, on that.
Well, and I think that kind of goes to, I mean, obviously there's no way to ever make everything 100% even, to some degree, but in the sense of Carl, I mean, Carl's walking around 6'10". I've never broke out a tape measure in person or anything, but Alexi's not very tall. If they were to go head to head on those handles, one guy's pulling about twice the range of motion. And when it comes down to a timed aspect and we're not going to failure, just the amount of time for the range of motion that Carl's pulling, I understand how that could be a little bit frustrating. And then there's also the aspect, which we've seen before, where you don't want guys kind of, taking that little shock or that bounce off the floor and kind of bouncing it. So you have to kind of pause it. And then, it's kind of how well do you either play the pause or the bounce at the bottom? How long is the range of motion? And we're talking just a minute time. It's hard to pause things and then move them for, big movements and then pause it again but still be fast. So I could see, like I said, I didn't see what you were speaking on, Eric, but I can kind of envision, what that was, and maybe had the, maybe had the stack been a little heavier or the handle been different. Maybe it wouldn't have come down to kind of being a full minute rep out deal with that kind of frustration, or even having to worry about pull heights. Cause if it's heavier, maybe somebody fails at 4 and maybe someone gets 7, and the last 20 seconds, it's okay. Time wasn't a factor, but in this case, you're fighting the clock. And then in Carl's case, you're probably fighting the distance and then trying to balance it with the down call and don't bounce it type thing. And yeah, it's a couple variables going on there probably.
In the end, the scores were like, if you look, first place 292, fourth place 270. So it was, those guys were, it was a tight group. So it was another great class. The one thing that I hope this event continues to grow, but I also hope it eventually gets more international competitors. We had Canada, US, we had Russia, I guess, with Alexi, and I guess Grigory, who's from Israel, I guess, or via Israel. But I don't know. I feel like for the name worlds, I want more nations to participate. So hopefully we'll get there. I know Ricardo's working hard to expand, but it would be great to get more international representation.
Yep, I agree. Yeah. But I'm always encouraged by how many women show up. So I think it's great that the women's division is so large.
Oh, absolutely.
It's amazing to see it.
I do think that was the biggest assembly of, even more so than the Arnolds. I think it was even more competitive than the Arnolds. So
For sure.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Is there anything else that you guys can kind of think of? Like I said, that would wrap up the super heavies and everything. Any other aspects, kind of highlights, anything that stands out that you can think of?
Um, Not for me. I think we covered everything I noticed. It's a good call out there, Eric, about more international competitors. I think his name's Pius Ekholm. I think he's from Sweden, so he was there too.
You're right, right.
But yeah, I think more international people would be good. And I liked um, it was it Dustin McFarland? I think maybe he has some sort of medical issue, and he was able to compete with his like own special like chair thing that he uses. That was really cool to see.
Yeah.
So he could compete hard, and we had Helen who was in remission of her cancer. So it's just like to watch people overcome like personal struggles and medical issues. Like it doesn't matter. If you want it, you can compete, and
yeah,
that was really inspiring to me to see that. So I love that stuff. So kudos to them for getting up there and putting it out there and taking that chance. So good on them.
Yeah.
All right. So like I said, that pretty much wraps up everything. If I were to, I guess I'll try to put this in the most regular terms I can that makes sense. Um, uh, we're reading off a lot of these rogue Anvil numbers, and the spreadsheet's not necessarily telling the full story. Now, I'm not accusing everyone of doing this, but several of these numbers that we've read off were people that definitely had leg contact and were bracing as they were lifting. There's no doubt about it. I have double-digit videos that were sent to me. It's not like I'm making shit up. So the thing that really confuses me is that one thing that the rule set seems to be fixated on for Armlifting USA is not having the offhand post on your leg because that's an advantage. And if we're going to assume that that's true, because I don't necessarily believe that either, but that's my opinion. But let's just assume that the offhand posting, the non-lifting hand is posted on your leg. Let's assume that's an advantage. Okay. Then the lifting hand that's actually holding said implement being braced up against your quad, jammed into your hip socket and squatted up absolutely has to be an advantage. So in my mind, it makes no sense to me whatsoever how someone could get a lift turned down if their offhand touches their thigh because they can't brace that. But then I see people literally knuckles deep in their hip socket, squatting up the rogue anvil, and they're lifting weights that they probably couldn't break 20 or 30 pounds lighter weights off the floor if it was just up to their grip strength. So if you have to have body contact and you have to brace it up against your leg and press it up against your leg, then your grip's not strong enough. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that, you know, perfect the technique and work on your game and do it up to standard. But for me personally, uh, I really like all the positives we mentioned. I like the big lifts. I like the clean lifts. I like the competitiveness. I love all of that. But the only thing that sort of dampens the mood for me as a fan of the sport is seeing basically illegitimate lifts get passed. And a lot of those people that are pulling illegitimate lifts that should not be passed end up on podiums because they're they're taking spots from people that maybe lifted, you know, according to the rules or with better technique, and stuff like that. And really, this falls, like I said, I mean, I don't want to beat around the bush. This really falls on the organization and the judges because this is something that should be, uh, shut down early on. This is not something that is. It's not something that's new. It's not something that just happened at the Olympia today or when the competition went down. This is not brand new news to people. This has been talked about for years. So it's not a new subject. And one of my other things that I always notice is when the weight stacks are very light and people are warming up, and like I said, I'm really just fixated on the Anvil lift right now. The Saxons or whatever, that's a regular deadlift, different thing. But for this taller loading pin lift with a long anvil, um, when people are warming up, they're not bracing like that. They're not pinning it against their leg because they can hold it. And it's not until the weight stack starts to reach a point that it becomes work and it becomes hard and their grip starts to fail them that you start seeing the change in technique. You start seeing the knuckles and the fingers slide over to the leg and you start seeing them squatted up, and that's when you start seeing lifts that just should not be passed. And I understand when you have, I don't know the tally, but let's just say you have hundreds of competitors or 100 competitors. I understand one or two questionable lifts getting passed. I just can't see like 50% of the men's podiums all getting away with it and their lifts getting passed when they're doing it. That to me is just it's a little bit alarming. And I would hope moving forward that the standard for the technique in that regard is, I just hope that the standard is just held better, because if the sport is to be taken serious or be treated serious like other strength sports, stuff like that just cannot be passed in my opinion. It's not a good look. It's not a good look for the veterans who've been around and seen it and, don't like it or understand that it's wrong. It's not a good look for new lifters picking up bad habits because they think that's how they're supposed to do it now because it was okay and it got passed 100 times at the Olympia. So for me, I think there should be maybe a sit down or a kind of a rethinking process when it comes to judging lifts like that and things of that nature. Because, like I said, it's one thing if like there's a newer lifter in a lighter weight class and they just don't know any better and they do it a couple times and then the judges are right there on site correcting them, educating them, and then it gets resolved. But when it bleeds into the heavier men's classes and you see it through, a majority of the weight classes are doing it, it it really, in my mind, it takes away from our sport and it hurts the legitimacy of our sport. So that would be the most professional way I would like to bring that up, is that, and that's why I give so much credit to Sarah for her 200, because, when Sarah lifted 200 on that anvil, no body contact. You can see it's possible. The thing does not have to be touching your leg. None of those loading pin lifts need to be touching your body, touching your leg. We're testing grip. You hold it with your hand. So like I said, I understand at the top of lifts when the hips have to come forward. I'm not a rookie. I understand lockout. I understand there could potentially be incidental contact, maybe the last 5% of the deadlift. But when people are using their quad and jamming their hand against their leg to break weights off the floor that I know they can't lift, and then they're being rewarded for it repeatedly, it worries me for what's to come in the future if some changes aren't made or if things aren't kind of brought out to light. So that's the only thing that's probably my biggest issue there is just mixture of the technique and judging, and when there's a room full of experienced lifters and people don't say anything or the organization itself doesn't keep it in check. It's the world championships, that would, that's not going to like fly in the Olympics, the NFL, the MLB, whatever highest levels. That kind of behavior doesn't go on. They don't switch up their rules and they don't just go along with things that go against the very essence of their own sport. So, yeah, that's kind of my one thing. Like I said, I didn't want to get too negative about it, or like I said, complain.
I think one, at least a possible solution going forward is to for lifts like that, like this one in particular, to have like a two judge system, like one on the side looking from the front. Sometimes that one is blatant, it should be obvious, but sometimes you're not exactly sure when the contact is it incidental or what. But if somebody's looking at the side together, it becomes extremely clear what's going on. So I think it should be spotted easily enough from the front. But if it's a challenge to maybe somebody who's new to judging, I think the use of a second pair of eyes from a different angle would go a long ways. Because I agree. It's not fun. I mean, bad lifts are a limited number of bad calls are sort of expected in any contest, but you don't want to see it become a usual thing because for the many reasons you've just explained, Zach. So I agree. It's something that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, and like I said, I totally understand. I mean, in every single sport at the highest levels, there's calls that get missed.
Yeah.
If we're talking baseball, I mean, calling balls and strikes, umpires are missing calls, but they're not calling a ball that's 3 feet high out of the strike zone a strike. It's
Right.
not that bad, and like that's kind of the level of comparison I would bring to some of the lifts I saw on the Anvil. It's like it wasn't like, well, it was questionable. It was on the fence. There was just like lifts that were like blatantly, you know, braced and in my mind's not following the rules, but got rewarded. So that's all. But yeah, I just would like to have brought a little bit of attention to that because if I feel like if I don't bring it up, then I'm also part of the problem. As in, many others. If it's kind of like that thing, if you don't say something or you don't kind of address it, then you kind of go along with it. Well, then you don't really have room to complain about it if you're not going to speak up and
Right.
and bring awareness to it. So that's all. Like I said, don't want to create a whole new episode or beat a dead horse, but yeah, that's the only part that bummed me out was seeing a lot of the bracing on the Anvil and just seeing a lot of the body contact for that's the only uh real negative I could take away from this. Other than that, I think the weight classes, the turnouts, the head-to-head battles per weight class, from all the footage I saw from the spreadsheet I'm checking out right now, looked like another great competition. It's just
Yep.
like I said, if we're going to do like the pros and cons, I think there's a lot of pros, and I would lean heavy on the pros, but in the negative side or the cons, that would be my only thing to bring up would just be a slight critique is to kind of tighten up on the judging or inform the lifters a little bit better
Right.
because you don't want people getting used to doing that and then thinking it's going to pass and then later you got to switch it up on them and now they're failing lifts and now they're oh, my old PR was 40 pounds higher and now they're making me change it. It's like it just starts to get messy. So the earlier they can sort that out or the earlier that gets fixed, I think the better the sport will be for it and the easier it becomes. And
Yep.
and another thing to note is you don't necessarily see that with like I'll just use an example, the super heavies. You don't really see that being a problem, with Carl, Jason, the super heavies, or like with Alexi, Mike Saffel, Jaland. I'm reading off the sheet here some names, but those upper class, you don't really see it too much there. A lot of that's veteran lifters, and those guys are kind of also keeping each other in check too. Whereas if I was lifting at 100 or 110 for this competition and I saw lifts that were getting passed like that, I would have called it out on spot. Or if it's like, hey, if you're going to let that guy lift like that, well, then I'll just do the same thing and we can all just lift 20, 30 pounds heavier than what we really can. So um, at the heavier weights, I think it kind of polices itself up because the experience of the competitors. But for some of these newer lifters that are maybe coming in from other sports or the lighter weight classes and other stuff like that, where they've only done a handful of competitions or this is their first time on a vertical handle, or even a loading pin lift. Yeah, I just think there needs to be a little more awareness and education put out there as far as what constitutes a good lift. And that's it. Yeah, like I said, that would be it. And I would find it very hard to believe anyone could disagree with pinning your hand against your leg and squatting a weight up is not an unfair advantage or doesn't go kind of against the whole spirit of what we're trying to do. That would be a very odd debate for someone to try to make. So, yeah, that's it. Like I said, I'll shut up now and we can kind of wrap it up. But yeah, hey, congrats, Eric, for you winning the 100 kg class once again.
Thank you.
And Jaland, yeah, you had to go to war with Alexi, man. But
Hey, man, silver is gold when you're going against that guy.
we got to keep pushing you up, man. You got to take him out one of these
I'm
days.
I'm
Yeah,
working.
okay. I'm just making sure. But
Wait for King Kong. That's all I'll say.
okay. So yeah, yeah, best of luck for you guys. It's probably King Kong next for everybody, right? I mean, I would
Yeah.
assume so. Yeah, hope to see a lot of these names hop over in King Kong and, kind of see where that unfolds. Or see how everything unfolds there. But yeah, like I said, thanks again, guys, for jumping on. Thanks for working with me when we kind of lost signal there. And
You did great, man.
yeah, congrats to all the lifters and everybody that, went out and put it on the line, did their thing. And yeah, pretty much it. So we'll check you guys out on the next episode. Any last words from you two?
Well, thanks for having me on, man. It's always fun.
Oh, no problem. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Yep. Wrap it up with that.